Hi everyone, it's Nicole, and today I'm bringing you my Summer Fling TBR and recommendation video. August 1st is the start of the Summer Fling Romance Readathon. It takes place all month long, and we have this really cute graphic with all of the prompts that you can follow along with. You don't have to treat this graphic like a bingo board, but if you want to, absolutely you can do that. The creator and all the co-hosts are going to be linked in the description box below, so you can go check out their channels and their videos. Without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with the recommendations first and then work to my TBR. So the first prompt is Down Home Country. The first book I'm going to recommend is The Cowboy by Joan Johnston. This is book number 1 in the Bitter Creek series. This is a contemporary Western, takes place in the present day. In this book, we have two ranching families, the Blackthorns and the Creed family, but they have been in a bitter feud for generations. This book is a second chance romance between one Blackthorn son and a Creed daughter. They tried to make it work when they were younger, but their families tore them apart. Now they're adults and Callie is in some financial trouble. Trace makes her an offer that is too good to be true. Marry him and she will get the money she needs to save her family. The next book I'm recommending is The Taming of Jessie Rose by Beverly Jenkins. This is a historical Western, and it follows Jessie Rose as she tries to keep her family's ranch afloat and also to protect it from people who would steal it from her because she's a woman. To help her do that, she hires Griffin, who is technically an outlaw. Another book I'm recommending is called The Outlaw and the Lady by Lorraine Heath. This is another historical Western. In this book, we follow Angela as she's kidnapped by a notorious outlaw named Lee Raven. As they're together, you realize that he's not really the bad guy he pretends to be. It's clear to Angela that he is hiding something, and she is determined to learn all of his secrets. And being with Angela, Lee realizes that he wants so much more out of life than just being on the run. Next book I'm recommending is Only by Your Touch by Katherine Anderson. This isn't necessarily a Western, but it does take place in a small town. In this book, we follow Ben Longtree, who is a vet and also the town recluse, and Chloe, who is looking to start fresh in this new town with her son Jeremy. And when Jeremy's puppy gets sick, she is warned to stay away from Ben Longtree, but she will do anything to make her son happy, so she goes and gets his help, and it turns out he is very skilled as a veterinarian, supernaturally so. The next prompt is Big City Life. And a series that I recommend is the Dark Hunter series by Sherilyn Kenyon. A lot of these books take place in New Orleans. It is a paranormal series surrounding a lot of Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, Native American mythology. The Dark Hunters are a group of people who at some time in their life had been betrayed so badly, their soul cried out for justice, and Artemis comes to them and offers them a deal. A chance to come back and get revenge against the people who wronged them in exchange for an immortal life, hunting other supernatural beings very similar to vampires. The next book I'm recommending is Mirror Image by Sandra Brown. This takes place in Dallas, Texas, and it follows Avery. She is a reporter and she survives an airplane crash. In the chaos and the wreckage of the plane crash, she is mistaken for the wife of Tate Rutledge, who is running for senator. And while she's in the hospital, she can't properly convey who she really is, and she undergoes plastic surgery to look like his wife. While she's laying in the hospital bed, someone whispers in her ear that they're planning to assassinate Tate. So being the reporter that she is, she wants to track down who this person is and save Tate's life. The next prompt is Author of Color, and I just have a few authors for you to check out any of their work. They are all amazing, and that's Beverly Jenkins, Talia Hibbert, Rebecca Weatherspoon, and Katrina Jackson. The next prompt is Hot and Spicy. One author that if you literally read anything she has ever written, it is definitely going to be hot and spicy, and that is Madison Faye. The series that I started reading from her is the Blackthorn Mountain Men. I've also read the Winchester Academy series from her. That is also kind of like a taboo or forbidden romance with an age gap. And her newest book, The Pool Boy, just came out last week. This also has an age gap, but it's where the female protagonist is older than the male protagonist. The next prompt is Dark and Dangerous. An author that I would recommend for this prompt is Katie Robert. She writes the Wicked Villains series. They are Disney fairy tale retellings, but where the villains are getting their happily ever after. The first book is called Desperate Measures, and that is a Jafar and Jasmine retelling. The next prompt is sweet and clean. I typically don't read quote unquote sweet or clean romances. They're usually all the romance I read, there is definitely graphic sex on page. If you go for YA contemporary romances, you really can't go wrong. One series that I really love is To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han. The protagonists are in high school, so it's just full of angst and it has a fake dating trope. The next prompt is road trip, and trying to figure out recommendations for this prompt, I realized that I haven't read a lot of road trip romances, but one book I can recommend is A Week to Be Wicked by Tessa Dare. This is a historical romance. In this book, the two protagonists are faking an elopement, and so they are traveling by carriage from England to Scotland. Next prompt is Friends to Lovers. Again, another trope that I really don't read a whole lot of, but one book that I love that has this trope is Radiance by Grace Draven. This is a paranormal or fantasy romance. It also has a forced or an arranged marriage trope between two royal families who want to create an alliance. The next prompt is Diversity. One book that immediately comes to mind is Neighborly by Katrina Jackson. This is featuring a polyamorous relationship. Next is Zenny by Rebecca Weatherspoon. Both of the characters in this book are bisexual, and there's pegging. Next one is Learn My Lesson by Katie Robert. This is book number 2 in the Wicked Villain series. This is a Hades, Megara, and Hercules retelling, and that's right, it is a real love triangle between all three of them. And the next book is Hamilton's Battalion. This actually has 3 stories in it by Rose Lerner, Courtney Milan, and Alyssa Cole. 2 of the 3 stories are featuring a lesbian or a gay couple. The next prompt is a disability rep, and that can be either a mental disability or a physical disability. The first one is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. Chloe Brown does suffer from anxiety, I believe, and also fibromyalgia. Next one is The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hong, and one of the protagonists in this book is on the autism spectrum. Next one is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. The male protagonist, Archer, is mute. He cannot speak. Another recommendation is Dark Lover by J.R. Ward. This is a paranormal romance series featuring vampires, and the main character in this book is blind. Next prompt is Old School Historical. And of course, when I think Old School Historical, I have to think of the original romance, which is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Also, Persuasion is really good as well if you like second chance romances. Also, if you're just looking for authors, Joanna Lindsay or Kathleen E. Woodywis, they have been writing romances since the 70s. And the last prompt is a category romance. I haven't read a lot of category romances, so I'm going to link Sarah's channel, Steeped in Books, and she did an entire video on category romances that is just amazing. But one category I did read just this month was Deadly Cover-Up by Julianne Lindsay. I love anything Julianne Lindsay writes. She is an amazing author. She writes both cozy mysteries and romance. So that is it for my recommendations. Now we'll move on to the TBR. For all of these prompts, I picked 2 books, so I'm just gonna go through them really quick. Don't really know a whole lot about these books. Just trust me when I say that they fit the prompt. For Down Home Country, I have The Men of Bitter Creek by Joan Johnston. This is a book that has 2 novellas in it. The first one is called The Man from Wolf Creek, and the second one is The Christmas Baby. And this is like a prequel book to The Cowboy, which is book number 1 in the Bitter Creek series. The next one that I picked is Rugged Texas Cowboy, and this also has 2 books in one. I'm not sure why I did that, but the first one being The Cowboy and the Captive, and the second one being Cowboy and the Thief. The next prompt is Big City Life, and the 2 books I have for that are Fit by Rebecca Weatherspoon. This takes place in Los Angeles. And the second one is The Professional by Kresley Cole. This doesn't necessarily take place in a big city, but the main male protagonist in this book is a billionaire, and that can be like one of the little caveats for this prompt. For the author of color prompt, I've picked Love in Catalina Cove by Brenda Jackson and Through the Storm by Beverly Jenkins. For the next prompt, Hot and Spicy, I picked A Worthy Opponent by Katie Robert. This is book number 3 in the Wicked Villain series. This is a Captain Hook and Tinkerbell retelling. And A Touch of Stone and Snow by Milla Vane. This is the second book in the Gathering of Dragons series, which is a fantasy romance. The next prompt is Dark and Dangerous. For that one, I picked See a Ruin by Pam Goodwin. The blurb on the back says a dark historical with pirates. Honestly, say no more. I love all of that. And Angel Fall by Susan E. This is a post-apocalyptic romance. For the next prompt, Sweet and Clean, I'm going to be reading Grounded in January by Savannah Hendricks. She is a local author that lives here in Phoenix who is super sweet. I met her when she had a signing at Barnes & Noble. The other book is Merry and Bright by Debbie Maycomer. The next prompt is Road Trip, and for that one I'm going to be reading Rhythm, Chord, and Malkin. I think that's how you say it, by Mariana Zapata. This is about a band who goes on tour. And the second one is A Hunger Like No Other by Kresley Cole. This is book number 1 in the Mortals After Dark series. I have read this series a while ago, but I want to reread it. Jen from the book Refuge read this series recently and she loved it, and I kind of want to reread it so I can continue on because I have not finished the series yet. Friends to Lovers, I'm going to be reading The Deal by Elle Kennedy and Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. For the diversity prompt, I'm going to be reading Him by Serena Bowen and Elle Kennedy and Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. For the disability rep prompt, I'm going to be reading Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert and Can't Escape Love by Alyssa Cole. For the old school romance prompt, I'm going to be reading Captive Bride by Joanna Lindsay. This was the first book that she's published in 1977. And the second one is The Flame and the Flower by Kathleen E. Woodywis, also the first book that she wrote in 1972. This book is also considered the first historical romance. For the category romance prompt, I'm going to be reading Missing in the Mountains by Julianne Lindsay. This is book number 2 in the Fortress Defense series. And Rule in Blackmail by Nicole Severin. So that is it for this video. A lot of books that I talked about really quick, I feel like. If you have read any of the books that I mentioned, please comment below. Also, tell me which book you think I should start with first. Go ahead and like my video if you did. Comment below and subscribe to my channel. You can follow me on all the social media platforms. The links will be in the description box below. I'll see you next time, avid readers.